For the last half-century, the world has lived under an illusion that food will always be cheap, always available, and always abundant. Supermarket shelves overflowing with produce from every continent made it feel like food scarcity was a relic of the past. But that era is quietly ending. Global agriculture, the system responsible for feeding 8 billion people, is cracking under pressures that have been building for decades. The first major pressure is soil exhaustion. Nearly a third of the world's farmland is now degraded. Industrial farming squeezed maximum output from soil year after year without giving it time to regenerate. The result? Declining yields, weaker crops, and more dependency on artificial fertilizers, which themselves are becoming scarce and expensive. Second, water scarcity is turning once productive farmland into dust. Rivers are drying, aquifers are collapsing, and major agricultural regions, from India to the American West, are running on borrowed time. Food cannot grow without water, yet water shortages are spreading faster than ever. Third, climate instability has made farming unpredictable. Heat waves, droughts, floods, and storms are wiping out harvests in cycles that no farmer can plan around. Countries once known for surplus now struggle with shortages. Fourth, the world is facing a fertilizer crisis. Natural gas prices, geopolitical conflicts, and export restrictions have made fertilizers extremely costly. Without them, some regions lose up to 50% of yield. Finally, the global food system has become dangerously fragile. Everything, from seed production to transportation, relies on a global supply chain that is breaking down. Together, these forces mark the end of the cheap food era. The world is entering a new age where food will cost more, shortages will be normal, and nations will fight to secure their own supply. For most of human history, agriculture has survived because the climate was predictable. Rainfall followed seasons, temperatures stayed within stable ranges, and farmers knew when to sow and when to harvest. But today, that foundation has cracked. Climate patterns are no longer predictable. They're chaotic, violent, and unforgiving, and modern agriculture, dependent on precision and timing, is struggling to survive. Heat waves now arrive weeks earlier than they used to, destroying crops before they reach maturity. Droughts last longer, hitting regions that were once considered water-rich. Entire rivers, lifelines for irrigation, are drying up. The Colorado River in the U.S., the Indus in Pakistan, the Po in Italy, and even the Yangtze in China have all experienced record low levels. When rivers collapse, farms collapse. And when farms collapse, the global food chain cracks. Then there are the floods. Sudden storms unleash months of rain in a single day, drowning fields that were already weakened from heat stress. Crops don't get a chance to mature. They rot in waterlogged soil. Countries that once exported grain are now importing emergency supplies just to survive. Climate instability doesn't damage crops alone, it destroys logistics. Roads get washed out. Storage silos collapse. Ports shut down. Even if a region produces food, getting it to market becomes a battle. Every major agricultural region, North America's grain belt, India's wheat fields, Europe's vegetable farms, Brazil's soy fields, is dealing with record-breaking weather extremes. The world isn't facing one agricultural collapse. It's facing dozens simultaneously. The result? Less food produced overall, higher costs for farmers, and more frequent shortages for consumers. The climate crisis isn't a future threat for agriculture. It is already physically dismantling the food system we depend on. While most people look at supermarket shelves and assume food will always be available, the real crisis is unfolding underground, in the soil, in the water tables, and in the ecological systems that quietly sustain global agriculture. This is the part of the story the average consumer never sees, yet it is the foundation of all food production. And right now, that foundation is crumbling faster than experts predicted. Start with water. Nearly 70% of global freshwater is used for agriculture. But aquifers, the underground savings accounts of water, are draining at record speed. Regions like India's Punjab, California's Central Valley, and China's North Plain are pumping groundwater far faster than it can naturally recharge. When these aquifers collapse, they don't just refill with rain. Many of them are damaged permanently. Once they're gone, farms dry up forever. Then there's soil degradation, the silent killer of future harvests. Modern farming relies on heavy tilling, synthetic fertilizers, and monocrop cycles. But these methods strip the soil of nutrients, destroy microbial life, and reduce its ability to hold water. Scientists estimate we've already lost one-third of the world's fertile soil. At current rates, the planet could run out of arable topsoil within 60 years, a timeline frighteningly close. Add to this the rising threat of water conflicts. Countries that share rivers, like Egypt and Ethiopia with the Nile, or India and Pakistan with the Indus, are already engaged in diplomatic battles. As water scarcity intensifies, these tensions could escalate into full geopolitical conflicts. This isn't just an agricultural problem. This is the collapse of the natural systems that feed 8 billion people. And once these systems fail, technology cannot simply replace them. The world enters a new era of food scarcity, one that changes everything. Around the world, agriculture is being pushed into a new era of instability, an era shaped not by markets or technology, but by climate shocks and deepening water scarcity. For decades, food production relied on stable weather patterns, predictable rainfall, and fertile soil. But today, farmers everywhere are confronting a reality where none of these can be taken for granted. Every season feels like a gamble. Every harvest feels like a risk. Heat waves are no longer seasonal. They're becoming annual events. Crops that once thrived at certain temperatures now struggle to survive. Wheat in India, corn in the U.S., rice in Southeast Asia. Each of these staples is experiencing record-breaking stress due to rising temperatures. Even a 2-degree increase during flowering season can slash yields by 20 to 30%, creating ripple effects across global supply chains. Then there is water, the foundation of agriculture. Rivers that fed civilizations for centuries are drying up. The Colorado River is shrinking. The Yangtze and the Ganges are experiencing dangerous fluctuations. Groundwater reserves, once considered infinite, are being pumped out faster than nature can replenish them. Countries such as Saudi Arabia have already accepted the end of domestic wheat production because the water simply no longer exists to grow it. As water becomes a geopolitical asset, nations are competing silently but fiercely. Some are buying farmland abroad. Others are building massive desalination plants. Many are pushing farmers to adopt less water-intensive crops. But these adaptations come with costs, trade-offs, and delays that the world may not have time for. In short, global agriculture is being reshaped from the ground up. And as the planet continues to warm, the biggest question is not how countries will adapt, but who will survive the coming food shock. As global agriculture continues to weaken, a quiet but dangerous transformation is taking place. The rise of a global food hierarchy, a world where access to food is no longer a universal right, but a privilege increasingly tied to wealth, geography, and political influence. In this emerging system, food security is becoming the new currency of power, and nations are beginning to treat grains, livestock, and farmland like strategic weapons. Wealthier countries are already buying up farmland in Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia, securing long-term food pipelines for themselves at the expense of local populations. Corporations, not governments, now control much of the world's seed supply, fertilizer production, and shipping routes. When they raise prices or restrict access, entire regions feel the shock instantly. For ordinary people, this translates into a widening divide. High-income households still have access to organic vegetables, imported fruits, and protein-rich diets. But millions of lower-income families are slipping into a cycle where fresh food becomes a luxury and calorie-dense processed food becomes the norm. Hunger is no longer visible only in poor nations. It's rising silently in wealthy ones too. As climate instability grows, crops fail more often, water becomes scarce, and fertilizers become expensive. This hierarchy will harden. The question soon will not be how much food costs, but who controls it. And in a world heading toward scarcity, control determines survival.